let's talk a little bit about becoming a more confident speaker. In a survey seeking to identify people's phobias or fears, 41% of all respondents reported public speaking as their most significant fear. Now, in this survey, the fear of death ranked 6th. So what that says is people would rather die than stand up in front of an audience and give a speech. Another study found that more than 80% of the population feels nervous when they stand up to give a speech. Now, some of you may not get nervous at all. You have no problem standing up in front of an audience and speaking. But what we cover in this little section here, it's just going to make you sharper, just going to make you better. But for the majority of us, as the numbers show, it's going to help us overcome that fear, that anxiety that we experience when we stand up and speak in front of an audience. So what I'm going to try to do here today is help you understand your nervousness, and once we begin to understand why we experience the things we do, I'm going to make some suggestions that will hopefully help you experience greater comfort and less anxiety when you stand up to speak. Now, think about some of the things that you experience when you stand up in front of an audience to speak. We get things like sweaty palms, we shake a little bit, people tend to blush sometimes, avoid eye contact, real dry cotton mouth, the heart starts to race, breathing starts to intensify, a lot of things that don't seem like a very healthy individual. As a matter of fact, I read a newspaper article once that said public speaking may be harmful to your health. And we would probably agree with that based off the way we feel sometimes when we stand up in front of an audience to speak. Maybe you've heard the story of somebody experiencing some kind of crisis, like they're driving down the highway and they come across a car that has wrecked, maybe it's flipped over, person is trapped underneath, and they experience this momentary superhuman feat of strength where they're able to move the car just enough to pull the person to safety. Well, not saying that giving a speech should be related to being superhuman, but the same type of thing is happening. What's taking place is that adrenaline is being released into the bloodstream so that you can perform at a higher, more energetic level. The breathing increases to get more oxygen into the body. The heart rate increases to deliver that oxygen throughout the body, all designed to help you perform at a higher level. Problem is, it's not something that we're really used to, and so therefore we don't know how to handle it. We don't know how to use it to our advantage. So to help us further understand and channel the fear and anxiety you experience, consider these 3 things that you experience when you stand up in front of an audience to speak. 1, you're going to feel more nervous than you look. Now, you probably watch other people give speeches and you go, wow, they're so calm, they're so confident, they don't look nervous at all, and I'm all torn up inside. Well, a lot of the things that you're experiencing are internal. You know they're going on, but your audience doesn't know they're going on. And so when we think about effective public speaking, a lot of that has to do with the impression you make on your audience. And if your audience is looking at you and they think you've got it together, they say, hey, they look confident, hey, they don't look nervous, then we're going to respond positively to you. So keeping that in mind, that the audience doesn't see all the butterflies in your stomach, they don't see the heart racing, they're looking at you going, hey, this looks like somebody that's got it together. Secondly, understand that almost every speaker experiences some level of nervousness. Take, for example, Barbra Streisand, the Reverend Billy Graham, James Earl Jones, Willard Scott. These are just a few people that report, being scared to death to stand up in front of an audience to speak. The Reverend Billy Graham, he spoke to millions of people scared to do it. Barbra Streisand, that's why she doesn't do concerts, because she's scared to death to stand on a stage in front of an audience. Even read an article about that one time where they talked about the fact that they set her front spotlights up on a concert stage at a lower level so they shine directly in her eyes. And so therefore she's not really able to see the audience when she's on the stage. Now, these are people who have audiences in the thousands and millions, and our audiences are probably never going to be that big. and understand that, it's not unnatural. You're not experiencing anything that anybody else doesn't as well. And so it's just a matter of understanding that it's perfectly natural. And what we have to learn to do is take all that nervous energy and transform it into positive energy. Finally, realize this anxiety can be useful. The increased adrenaline, the increased blood flow, these are all designed to help you perform at a higher level. And so, as I just said, taking all that nervous pent-up energy, instead of holding it inside, let it out through movement, gestures, energy in the voice, and that will translate to more effective public speaking and to your audience. So with all that said, we understand the anxiety we experience a little bit. How do we begin to develop confidence? What are some things that we can do to help us overcome some of these things? First and foremost, as we said before, audience analysis is always there. So the first thing we need to do is know our audience. So learn as much as you can about them, anticipate how they're going to react. You know that if you've developed your message for your audience, you're going to have confidence knowing they're going to be receptive to it, knowing that they're going to understand it, and that it's important information, necessary information, and they're going to be responsive to it. Secondly, be prepared. Probably one of the biggest things that we can do is make sure that we've done our research, that we're well organized, that we have practiced again and again to be prepared. If you're not prepared, you have every right to be anxious and scared when you stand up in front of your audience. But if you've practiced to know your information, you just have to deliver it. Next, make sure you select an appropriate topic. So topic selection, again, as I said, is one of the most important parts of the process. Success and failure can rest on this decision you make in choosing a good or a not so good topic. You, first of all, choose something that you have knowledge of and experience in. You're going to be more comfortable talking about something you know. But also, you're going to find making sure that you're comfortable talking about the subject as well. You don't want to be self-conscious. You choose something that maybe you know something about, but when you stand up in front of a group of people, maybe it creates a little bit of stress and anxiety because you're not comfortable talking about that in front of people. So make sure you select an appropriate topic. Recreate the speaking environment when you practiced. We addressed that before. We want to create a realistic speaking environment when we practice. We stand up, we speak out loud, we use all the movement, the gestures, visual support, everything like we plan to do it for real. So that way we've been there before and we're taking away the unknown. We take away the unknown, that's going to eliminate some of the anxiety that comes with public speaking. Next, know your introduction and conclusion. Now, I know that sounds kind of odd. You should know your whole speech, of course. But if you know your introduction and your conclusion better than any part of your speech, that's going to allow you to start strong and finish strong. So, we know our introduction like the back of our hand. That means that when we stand up in front of the audience to begin, we're not going to have to look for words. We're not going to jump around and trying to figure out what we're going to say. You're going to be able to start strong and make a good initial impression on the audience. Now, no matter how good of a start you get off to, that doesn't mean something doesn't happen somewhere in the middle. It happens. You get tongue-tied. You forget a point. You get things out of order. It happens. But you also know that conclusion better than any part of the speech. And so that means that, well, if you get to a point where you got to bail out, you really don't know where to go, you can move smoothly into the conclusion and you can finish strong as well. Your audience may never know you messed up there in the middle. You may know, but it may sound perfectly fine to your audience. So know your introduction and your conclusion better than any part of your speech so you can start strong and finish strong. Now, a lot of the things that we talk about here are physical in regards to preparation and practice and development. But being prepared to deliver a speech successfully and overcoming the anxiety also has a mental aspect to it as well. We have to be in the right mindset to deliver a speech. If you know that you've got a speech to deliver the next morning to a group of people, and you're laying in the bed the night before and you're just going over and over your mind, oh, woe is me, this is going to be so bad, I'm so scared, I don't want to do this, that's going to set you up for failure because you're convincing yourself that it's going to be a bad experience. You have to visualize your success. If you're prepared, if you've done everything you're supposed to do, to get yourself ready to deliver your message, you should be laying in the bed the night before going, I am so excited, I am ready to do this thing. Yeah, I'm a little bit anxious about it, but I'm ready to communicate my message to my audience. So you have to put yourself in a positive mind thought. Don't tell yourself how bad it's going to be, because if you do that, you're going to convince yourself that it's going to be a bad experience. So, mindset. Now, along with this visualizing your success, another thing we can do is utilize deep breathing techniques. Now, let's kind of revisit that where we talked about the heart racing and the breathing increasing and so on a little bit earlier. Why do deep breathing techniques work? All right, let's break this down. The body kind of knows what it needs to do to set itself up to perform at a higher level. It knows it needs more oxygen in the bloodstream, and the heart delivers that oxygen via the blood throughout the body. So the problem is that nervous breaths tend to be very short and shallow. So at a time when the body wants more oxygen, we're doing what? Giving it less. We can see a problem here. So what happens is the heart has to beat a little bit faster to get that less oxygen in. It's working harder to spread what little oxygen is there. The breathing has to pick up to try to keep pace with the heart, and the next thing you know, you're hyperventilating and going into cardiac arrest. Not a good way to deliver a speech. So what we need to try to do is enrich the bloodstream with oxygen prior to the demand. Prior to the brain signaling the heart, hey, it's time to perform, we need a higher level of oxygen in the body. So, simple deep breathing techniques. Stole this little technique from a radio talk show host, Dr. Joy Brown, psychiatrist, psychologist, I don't remember exactly, but she always talked about square breathing. And it's a pretty simple process. What you're going to do is you are going to inhale to the count of 4. Hold that breath to the count of 4. Exhale to the count of 4. And pause to the count of 4 before you breathe in again. So you inhale slowly to the count of 4, takes in more air into the lungs. You hold that breath to the count of 4, which allows more oxygen to get into the bloodstream. Slow exhale to the count of 4, and a pause to the count of 4 before you breathe in again creates a rhythm. It starts to relax the body, and it enriches the bloodstream with oxygen prior to the need. Next, focus on your message rather than your fear. When it comes to speech time, really you have more important things to worry about than how nervous you are. You have a message you have to communicate. And not to sound insensitive, but your audience really doesn't care how nervous you are. Starting your speech off by going, oh, excuse me, you'll have to forgive me because I'm really nervous. That diminishes your credibility, and your audience is kind of going, oh, okay, yeah, all right, just do the speech. They really are not, they may have empathy because they understand what it's like to be nervous, to stand up in front to speak, but they're not, not going to be apathetic in regards to, not apathetic, sympathetic in regards to your plight. So understand that you can worry about being nervous later. Focus on communicating your message. Now, the final thing that I want to offer to help you overcome speech anxiety is simply to seek speaking opportunities. The more times you get up in front of an audience to speak, the more you're going to start to recognize what's happening, why it's happening, and then you're going to learn to use it to your advantage. The body sets itself up to perform at a higher level. We have to learn not to lock down on the lectern, not to clench our teeth and hold all of this inside like a pressure cooker. What happens to a pressure cooker if you don't let off the steam? Boom, it's going to blow up, right? Well, what we have to learn to do is to let it out. Let that energy out through the voice, through movement, through gestures, and you're going to find that all that's going to come together to help you be a more effective, confident public speaker.